Are we ready? Get set, go! Go!
So this is the Outlaw Pinewood Derby that I built using C02 cartridges. I got most of my ideas off of YouTube, so I thought I would go ahead and post what my findings are and how I built this for the race. I have CO2 cartridges that are placed inside of these pieces here. And what these are you can get these off of Amazon. They're actually bike pump attachments that you screw onto the CO2 cartridge. Once it's screwed onto the CO2 cartridge, you can use the end of it to put on the end of the Schrader on the bike tube and pump it up. That piece is actually down inside of the wood, this black piece. So when you actuate, and I probably should have got some video of these before I put them in the car, but the idea is that once this CO2 cartridge is screwed into this piece, the air is actually released into this area. And in order to get the air to flow down through this black part and into the area that fills the bike tube, this piece has to move from this position down to this position, and that there opens up the airflow to move down through this tube. So the idea was to automate or trigger the movement of this aluminum piece down to this area here. So you can see that these two are down inside of the car, and I had to drill a hole into the side of them to create an outlet for the air to come out this horizontal direction, because as of now the aluminum piece is only built to push the air vertically downward. So I had to fill the inside of this with JB weld and a couple of other things, and then drill a hole to allow the air to flow down and out through this hole here. And that was probably one of the trickier parts, because I needed to redirect that airflow while still keeping the whole mechanism on the car in a fashionable and workable way. So, not a whole lot of fashion in this car, but the next step was to remove the pins that were on the black stems here and replace, because those were basically stoppers that kept this from coming off the other direction. Instead, I replaced them with a couple of springs. These springs here, I just picked these up from Home Depot in a package of springs, but they were just the right size to allow the spring to go down over the top of that black stem. I did have to file it down just a little bit in order to get the spring to fit perfectly, but you can see after I filed that down a little bit, that spring is meant to push down on this and actuate it to the next position down. You can see as I move this down, that's the position that needs to be in for the air to flow out. So this on top is meant to be screwed down to create a lot of pressure to push those down into the position that the air would flow out. So the next trick was to hold, once I have the springs pushing down on this, I need to be able to hold them up until I'm ready for them to move down. And so the way we did that, or the way I did that, was I created a mousetrap mechanism. So I've actually purchased a mousetrap to do this. And the idea was to integrate the mousetrap. You can kind of see what this would look like if it was a mousetrap. but this spring is holding this steel over to this left position. And if I were to pull this up here underneath these two aluminum pieces, it would then hold those aluminum pieces up. So I'm gonna try to show you this while I'm... Okay, so I pulled that up, and the way that I did that was I created this arm here out of a nail, bent it in and put it inside the side of the car, and this actually moves back and forth. I also used a piece of steel that would grab the spring and pull it up into that position for me. I could have just pushed this up by hand, but it's not a very convenient way to do it, so I just built in this arm that would help me do that on the fly. So I pulled this back, it pulled that up into that position, and then I used this secondary nail here to swing in as a safety and hold this up into that position while I get the rest of the car ready for the race. So just a simple arm to pull that up, and I've got a spring to pull it back into the normal position. So from here, like I said, this is like a mousetrap. The next wire I have is this one here, which is used to bead the trigger. So I'm going to use this to come over this piece of metal I have down here that is underneath the car. It goes up to the front where it's going to be sitting with the peg that holds the car on the track. But what I do while I have my safety on is I move this over to here, and you can see it's actually going to hold the metal underneath those pieces as well. And so here the metal under the car is going to hold that there in that position. The spring's up on the top here. This is when I would go ahead and wind this wing nut down. The spring is loaded both on the top of these canisters. The spring is also loaded, the mousetrap contraption here, with the metal holding them up. And I have this lever here that's holding that in position, which is connected down to here, which is also coming around to the front where my peg is holding the front of the car. Now when I let go on the front, what you're going to see are these springs are going to expand and push these canisters down, thus allowing the air to flow from the canister downward and out through the back. Now this isn't loaded with a live CO2 cartridge, so we'll do that at the race. But you are going to see these push down. The other thing that I'm doing at the race is I'm not going to use 16 gram. I'm actually going to use some 20 gram CO2 cartridges, just because if somebody else has a CO2 car there, I want to maybe have an advantage. So without any further ado, I'm going to let go of the front of this, and you're going to see those springs come down and actuate the car. On 3, 1, 2, 3. There you have it. You saw them push down. That's going to let the air come out the back in really quickly and launch the car down the track. So, all right, well there you have it. We had a good time. We got down the track pretty quickly. Ended up taking first place for the Outlaw. We did hit that brick wall pretty hard multiple times. Underestimated it a bit. It ended up bending my spring. Busting up the car, but we had fun. I'm happy with it. So I'm gonna give it one more shot here just so that you can see it up close with the camera before I put it all away. So if you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you build any cars based off this design, go ahead and stick them in the comments below. We'd love to see what you guys come up with. So this is gonna be the last discharge for the night. So thank you all for watching. 3, 2, 1.